The British Empire once ruled over a quarter of the Earth's landmass and its people, an unprecedented feat of global dominance originating from a small island nation. But how did it all begin? What drove this expansive force that changed the course of human history? From its humble beginnings in the medieval fields of England to its zenith-spanning continents, the saga of British expansion is a tale of ambition, ingenuity, and at times sheer audacity. The saga begins with a kingdom fragmented into warring factions. Alfred the Great, a king of Wessex, fought to defend his realm against Viking invasions in the 9th century. His success laid the groundwork for future monarchs to dream bigger. By uniting the English thrones under one crown, the stage was set for an outward expansion. The establishment of a strong monarchy provided the necessary stability and resources. It was under this consolidated power that England began to look beyond its borders, setting the scene for a global empire. This rise was not just about power, but also about establishing a national identity that could unify various regions under a single banner. With the dawn of the 15th century came an era of exploration. England, now a unified state under a powerful monarchy, was poised to extend its reach across the seas. The discovery of the New World by Columbus in 1492 ignited a fire among European monarchies to explore and claim foreign lands. Key figures such as John Cabot were pivotal. His voyages laid the foundations for British claims in North America. These explorers were driven by the promise of wealth, new trade routes, and the prestige of empire. This period marked the transition from a relatively insular kingdom to a proto-empire, setting its sights on distant horizons. The first permanent British colony was established in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. This marked the beginning of an overseas empire that would grow to encompass vast territories across the globe. Early colonists faced immense challenges, from harsh climates to complex relations with indigenous peoples. These early interactions set a pattern of trade, conflict, and negotiation that would characterize much of Britain's dealings abroad. The colonies also served as testing grounds for administrative and economic policies later applied globally. Colonial America became a crucial outpost for British ambitions, providing valuable resources back to the motherland. The wealth of the British Empire was built on the back of the transatlantic slave trade. Ships from Britain would travel to Africa, exchange goods for slaves, transport them across the Atlantic and sell them in the Americas. This brutal trade was integral to the economic model of the empire, providing the labor necessary for the plantations in the Americas. The profits generated enriched British merchants and funded further imperial ventures. However, this dark aspect of the empire would eventually lead to moral and political challenges, contributing to the abolition movement. The Industrial Revolution, beginning in the late 18th century, transformed Britain into the world's economic powerhouse. Innovations in technology, transportation and manufacturing not only revolutionized the British economy, but also gave it the means to expand its empire further. Railways, steamships and telegraphs emerged, shrinking the world and allowing more effective control over distant colonies. This era saw the British Empire reaching new heights, fueled by industrial might. The British Empire was not built on commerce alone. It was also a product of military conquests and strategic alliances. Wars such as the Napoleonic Wars, the Opium Wars, and numerous colonial conflicts shaped the boundaries and nature of British rule. Administratively, the empire innovated systems of governance that allowed it to manage diverse populations across continents. The use of local elites, indirect rule, and sophisticated bureaucracies were all part of maintaining control over vast territories. The empire was also a crucible of cultural exchange. Languages, religions, and ideas flowed back and forth between Britain and its colonies. The missionary movement in particular played a significant role in this cultural exchange, albeit often accompanied by colonial and cultural biases. These interactions were complex and had lasting impacts on both the colonizers and the colonized, influencing arts, literature, and social structures. Queen Victoria's reign symbolizes the peak of the British Empire. Under her rule, the phrase "the sun never sets" on the British Empire highlighted its vastness. This period was marked by relative stability, expansive cultural confidence, and industrial progress. The empire during this era was seen as a global policeman and a beacon of Western civilization, though this view is heavily critiqued today. The 20th century brought waves of decolonization driven by both internal pressures within colonies and changing attitudes internationally. The legacy of the British Empire remains controversial and debated. Today, the Commonwealth serves as a testament to this complicated history, striving to foster cooperation among former colonies. The impacts of British rule can still be seen in the political, legal, and cultural practices across the world. The seeds of the British Empire were sown in the fertile ground of post-Norman England, a land frequently marred by Viking invasions. The unification of England under leaders like King Alfred the Great provided a necessary precondition for overseas expansion. King Alfred's decisive victory at the Battle of Edington not only repelled the Viking threat, but also fostered a sense of national identity. This victory laid the early groundwork for a centralized rule, critical for the coordination of large-scale exploratory and military ventures in later centuries. The internal consolidation of power in England under the Tudor monarchy set the stage for an outward gaze towards new lands and opportunities across the oceans. During the reign of Henry VII, England began to make its mark on the world stage. John Cabot's voyages under the English flag opened up new territories in what would become Canada, sparking further interest in exploration. These early explorations were motivated by the search for a northwest passage to Asia, a quest that remained elusive but opened up new maritime routes and opportunities for trade and colonization. The encounters with indigenous populations often led to complex relationships ranging from trade to conflict, setting a precedent for future interactions in other parts of the world. The establishment of the Jamestown colony in 1607 marked a turning point in British colonial ambitions. Sponsored by the Virginia Company, this venture was empowered by a royal charter, blending private enterprise with royal endorsement. Jamestown's establishment laid down the blueprint for future British colonies, introducing a model of governance and economic exploitation that would be replicated in new territories. The administration of these early colonies set precedents for the development of colonial bureaucracies, which proved crucial as the empire expanded. Britain's maritime prowess was foundational to its empire. The Royal Navy, evolved from modest beginnings, became a symbol of British might, projecting power across the world's oceans. This naval strength was supported by practices such as privateering, where private ships were authorized to attack enemy vessels. Such practices not only bolstered naval capacity but also enriched Britain at the expense of its rivals. Control over strategic maritime routes allowed Britain to dominate global trade, a key factor in its imperial dominance. The Industrial Revolution transformed Britain into the workshop of the world. Innovations in technology, such as the steam engine and mechanized looms, revolutionized production and transport. This industrial might underpinned the empire's expansion, providing the goods for trade and the ships for naval dominance. The economic transformations brought about by industrialization fueled an unprecedented period of territorial expansion. The spread of Christianity was a major element of the cultural impact of the empire. Missionaries often accompanied colonizers, playing complex roles in the cultural landscapes of colonized lands. The imposition of the English language and educational systems helped to anglicize elite segments of colonial societies, a legacy that persists in many former colonies. However, these impositions also sparked resistance and rebellions as indigenous peoples and later nationalist movements sought to assert their own identities and autonomy. The Victorian era is often regarded as the height of the British Empire. Under Queen Victoria, imperial ideology was infused with a moral dimension, promoting a sense of British civilizational superiority. This period saw the consolidation of imperial control over India, the jewel in the crown, and expansion into Africa. Figures like Cecil Rhodes embodied the imperial drive of the era, pushing ever outward. Post-World War II, factors such as nationalist movements, economic challenges, and changing international norms prompted a gradual decolonization process. Countries like India led the way, gaining independence through figures like Gandhi, who championed non-violent resistance. The Suez Crisis of 1956 marked a definitive end to Britain's status as a global superpower. The transition from empire to Commonwealth reflected a shift towards a more equal partnership between former colonies and Britain. Today, the British Empire elicits mixed reactions. While it contributed to the spread of certain technologies and administrative systems, it also caused disruption and suffering. Post-colonial studies critically assess the impacts of empire, challenging earlier narratives that often glorified expansion. The legacies of the British Empire, from language to legal systems, continue to influence the global landscape. Understanding this complex past is crucial for addressing the challenges and opportunities of a deeply interconnected world.